Hey, it's Simon.
And this is Martina.
And we're broadcasting out of Kichijoji, the balmiest part of Japan.
It's very windy. It's lovely. It feels like the almost spring, that time period where it's winter, but the ume blossoms have just started to come out and the air has like a laced cinnamon smell to it.
Whenever we come home from any bike ride, right at the edge of our driveway, our neighbor's garden kind of peeks over and creeps into it. And you just stop there and you just get a huge full whiff of that cinnamon scent from the ume trees.
Yep.
It's such a lovely time of year here in Japan.
I never knew that ume blossoms or cherry blossoms had a smell. I have to say, I do think I prefer the ume blossom. I think that they smell sweeter.
Yep.
Probably because a plum is technically sweeter than a cherry, don't you think?
What?
I don't know.
Why do you ask me these
what
questions?
Kind of questions? I'm bamboozled. Like sour cherries versus like a sweet plum. Or is it a sour plum and a sweet cherry?
Okay, that's not the topic for today.
The topic that we're going to discuss today is much deeper.
Yes, it's not about smells.
Identity. Who are you? Who am I? Where are we all from?
Explain.
Okay, so we read the comments to our videos often, and we answer them often.
It's
like all
every
the time.
day and all the time. We literally
majority of the people that I've spoken with online, I've spoken with my pants at my ankles taking a dump.
Oh, Ducky, come on.
I mean, not like in person. Not like a, hold on, everyone. I'm a curl one out right here.
Share this thought with you.
But whenever I answer...
Not me, by the way. I'm usually in bed.
Usually I'm waking up or I'm going to sleep or I'm on a train.
So in our Barcelona video,
yes.
Christine asked a question, said, wait, did they really say they're from Japan? Which is a weird thing because even for us, whenever people ask us where we're from, it's a very weird answer for us to give.
Okay, but we'll get to that in a second.
And at which point I said, yes, we live in Japan. And then she wrote back and she said, Simon and Martina, I live in Japan too, but I won't ever say that I'm from Japan because I was born and raised in America, which is a very good point. We were born and raised in Canada. Should we say that we're from Canada or not? It just depends on what you view the word from as.
I guess one of the big things we should probably lay down first is that if I'm in Canada and someone asks me where I'm from, I would say that I'm Canadian, but I currently live in Japan.
Right.
That's how I would answer that question.
Right.
But when we're overseas and like if we're in Rome or if we're in Sweden or if we're somewhere where people think that you're from Canada, I can't say that I'm from Canada right away because it means to them that you are visiting from Canada.
Right.
We're not trying to say that we are Japanese.
No.
There's a difference.
Right.
I'm not saying I am Japanese and they're like, you look like your white girlfriend. I'm
Right.
like, no. I'm saying, where are you from? I'm from Japan. I've flown in from Japan.
That's where I flew from.
Yeah.
That's where my home is. That's where I live. That's where my community is.
Yes. And then everyone will always have a laugh. And then, which I'm always feel bad for all those people that are actually white and from Japan.
Right.
There's not a lot of them, but there are people who were born in Japan.
There are dozens of them.
There's at least handfuls of them. But I feel bad because they're like such an extreme minority, like fluent Japanese speakers that grew up in Japan out of high school.
Right.
And everyone's like, where are you from? And you're like, I'm Japanese. And they're like, okay, crazy.
Sure you are, buddy.
Poor guy. Anyhow,
I know it must happen.
Yeah, it's not us. So then they have a laugh and they say, where are you from? And we say, oh, well, we're Canadian. And then they go, oh, okay. And
we were in Canada a long time ago.
Yeah. And so we say we're Canadian. And then we say, but we've been living overseas now for like over 10 years now, right? And then it gets a conversation rolling. So I just wanted to clarify that this is not us saying that we are Japanese people.
No,
huge difference.
We are definitely not Japanese people of a Japanese race with Japanese blood.
Yes.
But after living here for a few years, there are many things that have changed us from who we were before. I remember in our last year...
And this is where we want to change the conversation to topic of the world around you and how does it shape you.
Right.
Yeah.
When we were in Korea, our last year there, we did a video saying like, how have we become more Korean? And there are many things that have changed our personalities and our like worldview and our ideas that don't necessarily align with who we were when we were in Canada or even who a lot of Canadian people are. Because I find now that whenever we visit Canada, kind of when we first visited Korea, there was like a wide-eyed kind of like, wow, look at all, this is so bizarre. Look at all this thing. Look, everything was so different. Like, look at all the lights here. Like, look at how everyone's dressed and it's bizarre. And now when we go back to Canada, we feel that exact same thing when before we didn't. So I don't necessarily think that we associate with Canada that well, even though it's a part of who we are. I want to say like that is my identifying thing. And I know that this sounds so hippy dippy to some people. Like I identify as like an attack copter. I don't want to get into that, but I think for us, we have a bizarre situation in which I don't know the clear answer.
Well, I don't think there is a clear answer. I think that it would be personally a disservice to the country that we lived in,
right?
Korea, I mean,
yeah.
to say that it didn't impact us in some way.
Of course.
When Simon and I got married, we were living in Canada, and then we didn't even finish a full year of marriage before we.
My phone is muted, sir. I don't know why this is happening.
Did you put on Do Not Disturb?
It's not on mute anymore. That's what's happening. It's back on mute.
It's-
Angie, come on.
Come
from
on,
Korea.
Angie. All
Jeez
right.
Louise, sending me Latin music pop recommendations because I asked for it. Gosh, girl. I really wanted Latin pop music recommendations.
Focus, girl.
When we first moved to Japan or Korea,
Yeah.
we had our first year anniversary together,
Right.
at the Home Plus Diner.
Yes.
Remember?
In a Bennigan's.
Because we didn't know that it was not Korean. We didn't
Right.
know it was American.
Right.
Because we're not from America. We're from Canada. We have different chains. And we went in there, we celebrated. And then we spent the next 7 to 8 years of our entire married life together
Yeah.
living in Korea.
Right.
We learned another language. We learned how to read it. We
Right.
went to restaurants that had not a splash of English on the wall.
Right.
And we ordered like it was a normal place to us.
Yeah.
It became our local diners.
Right.
We became friends with the ajumas that lived there.
Yeah.
We slowly started to change the way we looked, not on purpose,
Yeah.
but slowly over time, I started to use BB cream. Well, what is this BB cream everyone's talking
Right.
about?
I wore a lot of BB cream
Yeah.
before also, and I wasn't the only guy that does it. Lots of men.
Yeah, most men in Korea wear BB
While
cream.
in Canada, I don't know a single guy that puts on any BB cream. So like
Personally in his friends
personally,
group, you
yeah,
know?
in my friend circle.
Yeah.
Right.
But so what I find interesting about it is that those were kind of the tipping points when I noticed our comment sections changing a bit.
Right.
I think that when we started to tip over and be a little bit more really into Korean culture is when people started to say some negative things.
Right.
Like we look weird or like we're wearing too much BB cream or like
Right.
real men don't wear BB cream.
Right.
And that's when I remember you questioning it and going, I don't understand this. Like I look around in Korea
Yeah.
and all these men are real men,
Yeah.
whether they're straight or gay. And
Right.
a lot of them, almost all of them are wearing BB cream.
Right.
So your perception of a real man in Korea is a man who takes care of himself,
Yeah.
who grooms.
Right. Who has very
Face
good
cream,
hygiene.
yeah.
I'll tell you one of the things that I'm kind of scared to say about like one of the things that shocked us when we were in Canada.
Are you going to say it on the internet for all to
Yes,
hear?
I am.
Oh my
Because,
God.
okay,
Bravery,
so here we
let's do
go.
it.
If this doesn't work, we're just going to cut it out. So here goes. You and I were like, it was our first couple of days in Canada, like when we were back for the funeral. And like I went to a Starbucks and Starbucks doesn't have cheap drinks. Starbucks is expensive. And I saw a guy walk in there that looked homeless. Like he hasn't taken care of himself in a long time. Like he was completely bedraggled. His hair was all over the
Yeah,
place.
his beard was growing out and
Right.
like, it wasn't trimmed. You know?
His clothing was just like falling apart, but he went in there and he ordered a huge latte and then he got back into his like huge expensive new truck and drove off. And I thought, oh, it's just the rugged look, I guess. Is that like Canadian style or maybe that's just him? But it wasn't just him. I saw lots of other people that I thought were very slovenly and unkempt. I didn't think that in Canada before. I thought this is just like a rugged man.
Or it's just Canada.
It's
I
just-
never thought about
it's
how
just
people dressed.
Canada,
It was just
right?
the way that we all dressed.
I didn't have those perceptions until I lived in a country where men take very good care of themselves, right? And I think that a lot of the people that are like outsiders, like in Canada or America, that were looking at me starting to take good care of myself, they're like, what's wrong with this person?
Right, because it doesn't identify with what they see as masculine or feminine.
Exactly.
And then for you to admit that you like pop music, which is something that you would never do in North America. Like imagine and I'm saying this in a loving way, imagine a straight man saying to his friends that he loves Justin Bieber. He thinks he's great. He thinks he's got a great voice and he's extremely moving and like fun to listen to. People would be like, what's wrong with you? And they would call him all types of horrible names because people are insecure in North America. But in Asia, it's normal, like for a guy to say, oh yeah, I like Girls' Generation, or like they're a bunch of hot girls, or yeah, Big Bang's really cool.
Right.
Not everybody in Korea was into pop music. I'd like
Right.
to mention that. A lot of people we met did not like K-pop at all because it is, once again, just popular music.
Right.
But they weren't afraid to say, oh yeah, Big Bang's really cool.
Right. There are a lot of men here in Japan that love Japanese pop music.
Yeah.
And they go to like see like there are huge lines of men. Like for those of you that
It's
are part of our
their
Rainbow
life.
Ladder support team, they saw the video of men lining up to meet like Japanese female idols. Like men are really into that here. Are we to say those aren't real men?
Yeah.
And
I just think that what we're trying to get at is that probably that I'm going to sneeze into the mic. That's what we're getting at.
okay, well you sneeze off, Mike, and I'll go back to another comment we had. in one of our videos,
I'm done.
we wound up saying that we're European. Like
Yes.
there's like a European side to us that really likes some European foods.
I think
And
we were talking about lunch meats or something.
Yeah.
And we mentioned like how like because we're European,
Right.
we know our lunch meats.
and a person's like, wait, you're European? I thought you're Canadian. Well, to be fair, both of my parents are Polish.
Yeah.
And
They weren't born in Canada.
They weren't born in Canada. They moved to Canada, and then I was born in Canada, and I was raised Polish. Like Polish is my first language. I'm not that great at it anymore because I barely have any practice, and I stopped learning it when I was a kid. But when I was in Canada, I never identified as Canadian. I always said that I was Polish first, living in Canada. So where does that tie into any sense of identity? And I think maybe Canada is very different than America, because American identity is like, you're American, doesn't matter what you were before.
You kind of take on a new identity when you move there.
They're like, I remember in Canadian elementary schools, it was always said that
Oh my gosh.
Canada's the tossed salad and America's the melting pot. Did anybody else hear this
Canada
before?
is the mosaic.
It's the mosaic of
It's the
different
quilted
cultures.
blankets.
While in America, they all boil you down and make you into American.
Like when you arrive, you're like, I'm American. While Canada's like, we don't mind that you're Indian or you're Italian or you're from China or you're whatever, but you're also Canadian.
And
but it's not one or the other.
And I think that this sense of like mixed identities, like within Canada, and this lack of strong nationalism leads to us now having mixed identities as well. Like you and I are like, we're very like European and Canadian. I grew up with a lot of island culture. I have a lot more black family relatives than I do non-black family relatives.
And we don't think about that. That's just your family.
But that's a part of like who I am.
Yeah.
Living in Korea now, living in Japan, and where we're going to live next is also going to change who I identify as.
I also think that there is probably a biological level as well that we're not really discussing.
Okay.
Which is that we've talked sometimes about how like we crave rice now, and rice is something that we find comforting, right? You never could have ever convinced me my first 3 to 4 years in Korea that I would ever find rice comforting.
Right.
I always missed bread non-stop. Where's the freaking bread? What kind of meal is this with no bread? And I wouldn't eat the rice sometimes, and our teachers would always be worried that like we didn't eat enough of the rice, which is the meal. But let me tell you, it is turned on its head now.
My gosh.
I rarely want bread.
No.
If I have bread,
Bread's a treat.
yeah, we're like, maybe we should have some bread.
Ooh, why don't you go with some bread, girl?
And we'll buy 4 slices. Like, ooh, and we're like, ooh, too much bread. We won't be able to finish it all.
Right.
In North America, we were like buying loaves. We
Daily.
consisted off of sandwiches when we were growing up as kids.
I don't ever remember cooking rice as a kid.
No, I had minute rice where you add it into a
Yeah.
cup. Oh, so shameful.
Yeah.
And you put it into a container and then you add water and you put the lid
No.
on it and it's 1 minute and then you fluff it. It's white, totally useless, no vitamins. And then I would make stir fry and put it on top.
Wow, no, I never touched that stuff.
Oh.
I only touch macaroni and cheese and bread. Like that's the extent of my grains, you know?
No, but that's true. And so for me, I'm saying biologically, now that we've lived overseas for a certain amount of times, I do believe that our taste buds and our tongues have also changed.
Right.
And if you don't change, like we know people who, and I'm sure you all know people like this, who live in Korea or Japan, that despite living there for some amount of time, only stick to foreign food.
Right.
I'm not judging them for that. Some people don't want to introduce a new culture.
They don't want to abandon their own culture.
Yeah.
They want to like remember who they are.
So they tend
stick
to hang out in the
foods.
foreign neighborhoods. They tend to have foreign friends.
They only listen to the music that they listened to growing up.
Yeah,
They don't
back
adopt
home,
the
yeah.
new environments and whatnot.
And that's okay. That's your jam. I just think that you're kind of missing out. You're missing out on the point
Right.
of like going overseas, but that's fine. It's your choice. But for us, we did not do that. We abandoned that stuff right away. We had foreign friends, but we were never interested in hanging out in foreign neighborhoods or eating foreign food, despite all the people online that would be like, I bet you they ask for the English menu. And I'm like, we don't, but be angry.
I remember something really kind of like clued in for me as well. We recently ate at Saito Sushi again. We have a reservation there for every 7 months or so.
Once a year.
Once a year.
We say down to Saito's we go.
And I remember you had a very good piece of tuna. And then did you just spray water all over yourself?
You can't even see it.
Those of you that aren't watching the video, you're missing out here. Martina, how'd you get water up your nose?
I just took a sip of water and it ricocheted off at the angle and it went up my nostril.
Point is, you had a very, very good piece of nigiri that time.
Yep.
And you got moved to tears. You
Yes,
got very emotional.
I did.
Not because we're
It was
hipsters that were like, oh my God, I love food so much, but because we didn't have really good Japanese food in a long time.
Yeah, I really missed it.
We were in Canada for your dad's funeral, and then we were in Barcelona. And when we were in Barcelona, we went to a very famous restaurant by like one of the most famous chefs in the world. And we went to they had an episode on Chef's Table. We went there. it was all right. It was good. There's some things I really liked, but nothing really moved me. But when we were at Saito Sushi, I was moved with every piece. And those are the flavors that I crave, that I lack. So not that I lack, that I love. And
no, that you were missing.
That
Lack
I was
is like,
missing
you're like,
out
where's
on.
this flavor?
Right? Like we felt that like emptiness for it because we've lived here and because that's now part of like what we like. Those are our taste, our flavors, our preferences, our comforts. These are the things that matter to us now.
Yeah. And it's strange that these kind of things shift, because I think that's why I'm starting to get an understanding for army bases. So we've met a lot of friends and had a lot of friends on different army bases around Korea and Japan. And I understand why there's a consistent need for having the sameness, because I think it would be really hard if you're growing up on an army base, like, because there's a lot of kids that are born there. And if they had to constantly move from country to country to country with no consistent base of a comfort food or identity, I think it would be really hard. And so when you visit an army base, they always look like you're stepping into North America, and it's very jarring.
It's very disconcerting when you step there,
because you can't see over the walls. So for those of you that haven't been, you don't know how much you cross over and go, there's bus stops and elementary schools that smell like elementary schools. Like, we're having flashbacks.
And
like
Chili's.
And Taco Bell. Like, and the grocery stores are just a normal, and we say normal because to us, that was the norm.
Yeah.
I believe that there is an importance for that, which is what we experienced in Canada.
Well, I especially think so on the military base. If you're there, like, on the presupposition of, like, being ready to fight a war, you have to be, have a strong belief in what you're fighting for. This is where nationalism has to really come in and believe, like, this is, like, I'm trying to defend America. It's a lot easier for you to do that if you feel like you are steeped in America still.
Yeah, it's your own country.
So you're recreating that environment at every base you try to go to.
Okay, we're going down a different path, Simon, about nationalism, but that's not what we're talking about. What I'm trying to say is, I understand that, because we haven't had that for around 11 years now. For 11 years, we didn't have the creature comfort of Canada. I craved mac and cheese. I missed cornflakes and stupid Raisin Brands with those awful overly sugared raisins. And we wanted breakfast so badly, and I would make sausages from scratch. And we did everything to try to like keep that comfort while we were experiencing this new environment. But then there was a point where we just said, you know what? I don't need this blankie anymore. Right. Like, we're going to be living.
I don't need my blankie anymore. I'm a big girl.
Yeah. Well, for us, and I'm not trying to say anything about the army bases regarding this, because I'm saying that's a different reason for that. For us, we realized we were staying in Korea, and we were like, no more of this, like, ew, I can't have curry for breakfast. Or like, ew, I can't have an egg that's raw. Like, we just had to toss everything out the window and say, let's start eating some fried collagen. Right. Like, do you remember how much we hated collagen? We did. Fried when we first came to Korea? I know. The texture alone was like, ugh.
And we did a whole video about how gross it was.
Yeah.
Now I'm totally down
Love
for that.
it.
Right.
Delicious stuff. You got to feel it. You got to get part of that culture and go, wow, I really miss kimchi. Like, we keep kimchi in our fridge every day, you know?
The question of where we're from doesn't have an easy answer. But I think the very act of questioning it does, like, kind of pose an answer as to like who we are and where we are globally. And the idea that like not every country is like set up with walls. Not everybody's their own distinct culture. Every culture borrows from each other. Yeah. There's nobody that's purely original. There's no true nation that you're from. Everybody keeps on blending. Everyone's going to keep traveling. Yeah. We're going to keep learning. There are people in America now that are listening to Korean pop music that wouldn't have listened to that 10 or 15 years ago.
They wouldn't have been able to find it. Like without the new tools that have come out. Like if it wasn't for YouTube, K-pop never would have made it to America. Yeah. Because there would be no way for you to get a K-pop CD without going to Korea. And why would you go to Korea if you don't like anything about it yet? Right. But when you get to know K-pop, then you say, I want to go to Korea, or you get to know Korean food because people left Korea, came to your country, opened a Korean restaurant up, you tried it, and you said, I want to visit that country. That's what we did when you met your teacher who was from Koreatown. Yeah. You were like, I really like Korean food.
He introduced me to some great Korean students who were like studying and being a lot better behaved than my Canadian students who were just so challenging. And I thought, if I'm a teacher and I want to do some fulfilling work, let me go to a place where like the students are going to be a lot nicer. Yeah. And I took my services there and I had a good time being able to do that.
Yeah, exactly. You know? And for me, look what happened. Mickey came from Japan and she introduced me to Japanese culture. She said, this is what I eat for lunch. It's onigiri. And I'm like, what is that? And then we got to know each other's culture. Right. And I had a really actually touching moment with Mickey.
I loved this. Yeah.
We didn't share it with you guys at the time because I was way too too sobby and choked up about it.
Right.
Let's see if I can make it through.
You got this.
But after my dad passed away, Mickey sent me a lot of messages. Like we keep in touch on
Online.
the internet,
Yeah.
online,
Yeah.
the app.
Yeah.
And she sent me this big stream of thought that she said she is really sorry for sending, but she was just kind of crying and thinking about my dad because to her, she also grew up with my dad. Like I grew up with her family. She grew up with mine. And she sent me all these really positive memories. And then after the funeral, Mickey came by the house to see if she could do anything to help us out. And she had brought with her a giant care package. And in it, she explained to us all the strange things that she had packed. And she had packed these buns, this big bag of like 6 cheese croissants or something. And she goes, when I was a kid, on Sunday, we all went to Buns Masters, which is like a bakery.
Right.
And it was the first time I had ever had a cheese croissant. And your dad let me have it.
Yeah.
And like gave it to me. And I was like, wow. And she's gone there ever since, like to buy her, her Kaiser buns or whatever we do, right? And then she said, this is a can of chunky soup. She said the first time she had it was when my dad made a bowl for us. The two of us ate it and Mickey was like, I love this. And it was just a canned good, but it's the same reaction I had to onigiri. I was so like, wow. And Mickey's like, who cares? It's just that.
Right.
And she had all these things. She got us roast chicken from Costco, which reminded her of my
She
dad.
got you like pea soup, canned pea soup. Habitant, that's like because your family introduced that to her.
Yeah.
And your family has had an impact in her.
And then her mom made me onigiri.
Oh my gosh. And it was great. And
little box of them.
I hoovered those.
I was like, they're made with love.
I knew that every time Martina saw them that she'd cry. So like, I just got to eat as many as
there were like 24 of them. I'm like, okay, Mrs. Timida, there's 3 of us left here, but okay.
But I think the whole point of this is identity is something that people strongly hold on to.
Yeah.
And they say, I identify as this or that or this. When I think you really just have to be open to going to new places, having new experience, and questioning your identity and letting your like barriers be like dropping your barriers a bit and taking in as much of other places as you can. And then you won't necessarily identify with one country over another. You'll identify with many more people and you could empathize with many more people, understand many more people than just yourself and the people that you've grown up with.
And I wouldn't say that this is a disservice to the country you're from. We're not saying forget that country.
No.
Like, I don't think you should replace one for another.
No.
I've seen people do that and that's not right. Where they try to like abandon their past country and they go like, this is me now. And everyone's like, that's weird because it's not. Don't abandon it, but add to it.
Yeah.
You're so capable of growing and having more great things be a part of you, reading more books, learning information, accepting different people's like sexuality. You can do this. It's capable.
Humans are very malleable,
Yeah.
and we can constantly grow and change and thrive, and we just have to give ourselves the opportunity to do so. And I hope that these videos and podcasts can inspire you to do the same.
Yeah. So guys, let us know what you think about this thought in the comment section below. I feel like I can hear our cat meowing outside the door.
Oh, fat boy.
But
Okay, let me
we have sound blocking headphones on, so I just hear the piteous little...
You see, it looks like
I
he's
don't
still
know.
I'm going to go let him in. Thanks for listening,
Thanks for listening,
everyone.
guys. And let us know what you think in the comment section below. Happy week, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.